Welcome back to the Latin America Trade Observatory. I'm your host Joaquin, and today, from our different desks, we are having an analysis of the import and export flows of the largest economies of Latin America. So grab your coffee, grab your popcorns, and join us with this analysis. So, first of all, I want you to understand the top 5 economies in Latin America. The number 1 economy is Brazil. Brazil economy is the 10th largest economy in the world and the first largest economy in Latin America. This country has a very big relations with BRICS bloc, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And Brazil's trade future is going to be another story that we have to analyze in another episode. The second largest economy is Mexico. Mexico has a GDP of $1.79 trillion and is the second largest economy in Latin America and the 12th economy in the world. Mexico's geographic position, together with the US, makes a land full of opportunities and access to the Pacific and to the Atlantic Ocean. Argentina has a GDP of $0.65 trillion and is ranked the third largest economy in Latin America. Fourth, Colombia. Colombia is the fourth largest economy in Latin America and it has a GDP of $0.36 trillion. Fifth, Chile. Chile is the fifth economy in Latin America with a $0.34 trillion of GDP. And as a surprise, I give you Peru. Peru is the number 6 economy in Latin America, and I added Peru because I wanted to analyze it a little bit deeper after the Chancay episode. And Peru is not far from Chile, so I believe that after Chancay and the new FTA, it might surpass and become the fifth largest economy. Let's wait and see. So if we deep dive into Brazil's import and export flow, I wanted to give you the top 3 destinations for exports. So the number 1 of Brazil's exporting country is China. Brazil's exports to China represents 26% of the total exports of this country with a worth value of $94 billion. Number 2 is USA. Brazil's exports to USA represents more than 11.4% with a trade value of 40 billion. The number 3 is Argentina. Brazil's exports to Argentina represents 5% of the total exports with a trade value of 13 billion. So here are the top 3 import origins. Top 1 is China. China is the largest trading partner for Brazil. That means that Brazil buys 23% of the total imports into the country with a trade value of $67 billion. The number 2 is USA as well. USA represents 18.5% of Brazil's total imports with a trade value of 54 billion. The number 3 country that sells the most to Brazil is Germany. Germany has a share of 4.6% of the total imports into Brazil with a trade value of 13 billion. So what is Brazil exporting? The top 1 is soybeans. Soybeans trade value is $5 billion a year. Number 2, crude petroleum with a $4 billion value. And the number 3 is iron ore with a $2.6 billion value. The top 3 Brazil's import products are refined oil or gasoline with $18 billion, crude petroleum with $9 billion, and vehicles with a value of $7.4 billion. So here are the top 3 destination countries for Mexico. Mexico's top destination country is the US. Mexican exports to the US represent 80% of total exports. That means a lot. And this is thanks to the North American trade agreement that we have since more than a decade ago, that it has been reformed recently in the first administration of Trump. And I believe that in the following months or in the following year, it will be renegotiated again. The trade value of Mexican exports to the US is $493 billion a year. The second largest country that Mexico exports to is Canada. Again, because of the North America trade agreement and the proximity of the North America supply chain, Mexican exports to Canada represent from 3 to 5% of the total volume. The third country is China. China's economy is growing a lot, and Mexico is exporting and increasing the export volume to there. So today's China represents only 2% of total exports. So here are the top 3 import origins. The first country that we import from is US. USA represents 50% of the total imports with a trade value of $249 billion. Number 2, China. China represents 19% of the total imports with a trade value of $129 billion. The third largest country Mexico imports from is Germany. Germany represents 3.7% of the total imports into Mexico. I want to add something that Mexico has a free trade agreement with Europe, so I don't understand why Europe has a very few share compared with US or even China. So here are the top 3 products that Mexico exports. The first is cars with a $64 billion a year. The second, motor vehicles and accessories with a $41 billion a year. And the third one is crude petroleum, which is worth $32 billion a year. The top 3 products that Mexico imports are refined oil or refined petroleum, which is worth $38 billion. Second, vehicles with a value of $30 billion. Third, circuits or electronics with $21 billion. The next country is going to be Argentina. Argentina top 3 destination countries. The top one is Brazil with a share of 17% with a worth value of $14.5 billion. Second, China. China represents 9% of total exports of Argentina with a worth value of $7.5 billion. Third, US. USA represents 8% of total exports of Argentina with a worth value of $6.2 billion. Here are the top 3 import origin countries. The number 1 is Brazil. Brazil represents 23% of total imports to Argentina with a worth value of $17 billion. Second, China. China represents 19% of total imports into Argentina with a worth value of $14 billion. Third, USA. USA represents 12% of total imports into Argentina with a worth value of $10 billion. The top 3 Argentina export products are: number 1, soybeans. Soybeans represents $7.9 billion. Second, corn. Corn value is $6.5 billion. Third, trucks. Argentina export trucks worth value of $4.7 billion. Here are the top 3 Argentina import products. So Argentina imports soybeans as well, worth $5.4 billion, vehicles with $4.7 billion, and third, refined petroleum, which is $3.6 billion. So now it's time for Colombia. The top 3 export destinations of Colombia are: number 1, the US. The US represents 29% of Colombian exports, worth $14 billion. Second, Panama. Panama represents 8.9% of total exports of Colombia, with a worth value of $4.3 billion. Third, China. China represents 5% of total exports of Colombia with a worth value of $2.6 billion. And fourth, I wanted to add India into the map because India is very close to China, which is 4.5% of total exports of Colombia with a worth value of $2.4 billion. So the export volume from Colombia to China and from Colombia to India is quite very similar. So here are the top 3 Colombian origins of importing. The number 1 is USA. USA represents 25% of Colombian imports with a worth value of $14 billion. Second, China. China represents 24% of Colombian imports with a worth value of $13 billion. And third, Brazil. Brazil represents 6% of total imports of Colombia with a worth value of $3.5 billion. So, what are Colombians exporting to the world? The top product that Colombia exports are crude petroleum, worth $13 billion. The second largest product that Colombia exports are coal briquettes, with $10 billion. The third product that Colombia exports to the world is gold, worth $3 billion. And the fourth product, not very far from the gold, which is the Colombian gold, is coffee. Coffee is the fourth largest, together with gold, is also worth $3 billion export industry. What is Colombia buying from the world? So Colombia also buys refined petroleum, which is gasoline, worth $4.4 billion. Second largest product that Colombia imports are cars, worth $2.6 billion. And the third one is phones. Phones are worth $2.2 billion of Colombian imports. Now it's time to see Chile. Chile export destinations are number one, China. China represents 39% of total exports of Chile, worth $38 billion. As you can see, China and Chile are trading a lot, and China is a very important country for Chile exports. Second is the USA. The USA has a share of 15% of the total exports of Chile, worth $14 billion. The third largest export country for Chile is Japan. Japan represents 7.5%, worth $7 billion trade. So here are the top 3 import origins into Chile. The first country that Chile imports from is China. China represents 25% of total imports into Chile. The trade value of China's imports is $26 billion. The second largest country Chile imports from is the USA. USA represents 20% of total imports into Chile. The trade import value from USA is $20 billion. And third is Brazil. Brazil is the top 3 country that Chile imports from, and it has a 10% share worth $9 billion. So what are Chileans exporting to the world? Well, roughly speaking, Chile is a mineral export country. Minerals represents 36% of the total exports from Chile, worth $37 billion. The second largest product that Chile exports are fruits, worth $8 billion a year. Fish and carbonates are the top 3 export commodities from Chile to the world, worth $4 billion and $5.7 billion respectively. What is Chile importing from the world? Well, the top product that Chile imports is refined petroleum. Again, second largest product that Chile imports from the world are cars. Cars represent a $3 billion industry. The third largest product that Chile imports from the world are trucks. Trucks represent $2.7 billion industry. So as you can see, Chilean exports are basically minerals and food. Chile, even though it's a very small and tiny country in South American region, I really admire their business mindset and capability of exporting. No wonder that China is the largest country that buys from Chile, and the relationship between Chile and China is keep on growing. So here is the extra bonus that I wanted to give you as a gift, which is Peru. So the top 3 destination exports of Peru are number 1, China. China represents 34% of total exports with a worth value of $24 billion. Number 2, USA. USA represents 13% of total exports with a worth value of $9 billion. And number 3, India. India represents 6.4% of total exports from Peru with a worth value of $4.5 billion. The top 3 import origins to Peru are number 1, China. China represents 26% of total imports to Peru, worth $15 billion a year. Second, USA. USA represents 23% of total imports to Peru, worth $14 billion a year, which is not far from China. And number 3 is Brazil. Brazil represents 7% of total imports to Peru, worth $4 billion a year. So, what are Peruvians exporting to the world? Number 1 is copper ore and minerals. This commodity or this product represents 30% of total exports from Peru, worth $29 billion a year. The second most exported product from Peru is gold. Gold represents 13% of total exports, worth $8 billion. And third most exported product are fruits. Fruits represent 8% of total exports from Peru, which is worth $6 billion. So what are the top 3 products that Peru imports? Number 1, refined petroleum. Refined petroleum is worth $6 billion a year. Second, machinery. Machinery is worth $6 billion a year. And the third product are cars, worth $4 billion. So after looking into these numbers and data of import and export from Latin America to the world, I have some conclusions to make. First conclusion is China is more linked to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and Peru, while Mexico and Colombia are more linked to the US economy. That is for sure a reason why Mexico is renegotiating terms with the US and also imposing some tariffs to China. If you realize that we have a trade deficit with China that we have to fix in the future. Another observation is that Latin American economies depend on third countries in terms of energy. Latin America is a huge exporter of crude oil, including Venezuela, but we depend on other countries to sell us gasoline. So it doesn't make sense in terms of the future of economics. I believe that the solar and the new energy will shift the direction for Latin America. Another topic is raw materials. Latin America is a huge exporter of minerals, raw materials, or food. And I believe that if we import more technology or machinery, we will have the ability to increase our capacity of production and also to increase our capacity of finalized products. That means that we will have the finalized products being exported to the top markets like the US, Europe, or even China. So, amigos, this is it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new and added value to your career or to your knowledge. We have a surprise for you, so stay tuned and keep tracking us. Adios, gracias.